Hello again, Card Warriors. So there have been a lot of questions over how the new cards work, so I picked out a few of the cards, and I'm going to explain how their interactions work a little bit. So we got three new keywords, which are Rush, Overpower, and Surge. And I'll go through what each of those do as I reach those particular cards. But I also wanted to mention that there are also several cards that do not do what they state on the card, so I'm going to also explain some of those as we go through the list. So the first card, we have a big ol' typo. The card is Angry Awakening. So this says it spends all of the energy in your bank to cause an SP character with a cost equal or less to that energy spent to appear from your SP deck. That's not what this card does at all. This card spends all energy that you have just available. So you have your normal energy for the turn, and then you have your bank, which has all of the excess energy that you haven't spent yet. This only applies to your normal energy. It does not touch your bank at all. Now, you can break your bank and then have all of that energy come into your normal energy and then use this. But unfortunately, this card has a few drawbacks. It does use every last drop of energy that you do have. So if you break the bank and then use this, you're going to be completely spent and won't have anything else. It is a decent option in that it's a zero-cost card that's only a super rare that can target pretty much anything for the appropriate cost. But if you want to get out, say, a 10 cost with this, it's going to be quite difficult, and you're going to have to line up the deck a little specifically to get that to work. But anyway, long story short, this card does pretty much what it says, only ignore bank. It's your normal energy, not your bank. Next up, we have the Surge keyword on Videl. So Videl actually has two Surges. So what Surge is after X amount of turns, the Surge is active. So if you play this card on turn 1 or turn 2, your turns, then it's just a 2-2. If you play it on your turn 3, then it's a 3-3. If you play it on your turn 4, then it's a 4-4, and then that's all it does. This is, I think, the only super early Surge card, and since it's giving you less stats than you would want, because the other Videl is a 5-1 from the very get-go and can be played on turn 1, I don't see this card as, having any real use, but it exists, and that's what Surge does. Okay, so I'm bringing up Proud Warrior to go with Overpower. So let me get to Overpower first. So Overpower is a keyword, and what it states is not at all what it does. It says this effect does not apply to opposing cards with the same cost as this character or lower. So when it says this effect, what it really means is targeting. And the way that Overpower works is that your card has a cost, or like right here, this card has a 1 cost. And what Overpower does is it says that this card cannot be targeted by your opponent's cards only that have a lower cost than this card. So not the same cost, lower cost. So if we took a character card, let's just find a character card, like say the Semi-Perfect Cell. If we were to give him Overpower, he could not be targeted by any cards that are 4 or less. This includes event cards, this includes character cards, this includes SP cards. Nothing can target it. And what I mean by targeting is anything that would make you click on this card in order to activate its effect, in order to have it affect this card, those will not work. So if you want to use, say, Golden Fighter on this, it would not work. If you want to use Judgment on this, it would not work. If you wanted to use a buff card like Intimidation on your opponent's card that has Overpower, it won't work. So it doesn't matter what the card is, the card just cannot target it. And this applies for everything, including characters too. So TN, Neo Tri-Beam, it says it returns a card on your opponent's side of the field to their hand, then this card gets returned back to your hand. It couldn't target anything with Overpower either, as long as it's a 3 cost or higher. Even cards that target multiple cards on the field, including one of yours and one of your opponents, wouldn't work because you have to specifically select it. So this was the only place states this card can only be used when there are characters on both sides of the field. KOs one character on the opponent's side of the field, and KOs all characters on your side. So the KOs one character on your opponent's side of the field means you select their character. You can't pick a character that has Overpower. So going back to specifically Proud Warrior, Proud Warrior is supposed to remove any effects applied to the character. effect removal would apply to Overpower, but you can't target the Overpower card because of the fact that it can't be targeted by anything that targets. So this would actually be unable to target something with Overpower, even though Overpower can be removed by effect removal. So moving on, here comes the Ginyu Force is an older card, but it gives negate damage to all Ginyu Force cards. Negate damage, I had a reason for bringing this up. So negate damage, so a lot of people wonder, like, what works against negate damage, what doesn't work against negate damage. So say, take Vegeta New Battle Suit. If your opponent's board has negate damage, then this will not do anything to that board because it deals damage. Whereas you have other cards like Semi-Perfect Cell or All Trained Up. We'll start with All Trained Up because people are more familiar with that one. All Trained Up will destroy everything on your opponent's side of the field that has less attack than the card that you choose on your side of the field. And you can still target your card, so All Trained Up still functions through your opponent's Overpower and will clear their board even if those cards have Overpower, as long as their defense is less than your attack. For Semi-Perfect Cell, it's the same deal. He's pretty much the exact same thing as All Trained Up, only it's always for whatever his current power level is. So I just wanted to make sure that people understood that damage immunity does not stop those types of KOs. Warriors of the Otherworld. One thing that needs to be kept in mind with this card says it returns all SP characters in your graveyard to your SP deck. If a card gets destroyed, it will not apply to this. So if you're playing a Vegito deck, your Vegito will be destroyed, and then this card cannot return Vegitos back to your SP deck. If your opponent uses Final Flash on your Ginyus, you can't use this to bring back your Ginyus. So I just wanted to make sure that people understood that destruction makes it so that the cards don't count as being in the graveyard. They're just not there anymore. They're just gone, man. Uncontrollable Anger gives Rush to one character on your side of the field. So Rush itself is the ability to, when it kills a unit, it gets to attack again. And if it kills a unit again, it can attack again. So long as there are units that it can kill, and so long as it doesn't die, it can keep attacking. So that's pretty much all Rush is. So that one doesn't really need a whole lot of explanation. So Amazement, hilariously, this card is a super rare. This card is a common. They do the exact same thing, only this can also be cast from your deck for a blue symbol. So, power creep. Also, if you have any copies of Proud Warrior, you might want to do one of these. So anyway, so since Amazement does the exact same thing, there's really no reason to run Proud Warrior, so if you happen to keep those, you could just get some free card points. So a Glimmer of Hope is a new type of effect, which gives your opponent a debuff. That debuff states that they are unable to attack your opponent's leader until the end of the opponent's turn. So this card actually can be utilized to try and stall a little bit. It has some potential there. However, it will not work on Overpower units. And that's relevant because I will explain that in a second. So, because anything that doesn't target can be used on Overpower units, if your opponent has a cheap early board that has Overpower, then Final Resistance might be able to kill that board. It's also a pretty good tech card against Ginyus right now, since none of them have more than 3k defense, other than I think one of them. So this is a pretty good card to just wipe them. So speaking of cards that can bypass Overpower, Death Slicer is hilarious. So this, so anything that says random doesn't target, and anything that doesn't target bypasses Overpower. So what this says is discard a Frieza from your hand, randomly KO 2 characters on your opponent's side of the field. This card is absolutely nuts, and it's going to be a staple, I predict, in the future. So anyone who had Frieza and who held on to it, congratulations, it paid off. I just wanted to bring up Cookie Time again because Cookie Time does target, which means that Overpower is immune to this if the card is 3 or greater. However, this card is literally Petrify, only it can target everything, all the way up to 10 cost cards, as long as you have 10 energy in your bank, which is really easy to accomplish. And that if this card had existed in the last set, before Overpower, it would have been one of the most broken cards. So I'm glad that they released Overpower when they did, because otherwise this card would be absolutely ridiculously nuts. And I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying it's bad either. This card is great. It's just, yeah. All right, so we have a couple more Surge cards. So Saiyans have this new Surge mechanic, which states that every single Saiyan that's in your graveyard reduces the Surge by 1. So Surge 10 would state that on your 10th turn, so when you would naturally have had 10 energy on your turn, this is when it would go off. But if you put, say, 4 Saiyans in your graveyard, then this will instead proc on turn 6. So that's just how the Saiyan decks are trying to utilize their Surge mechanics. And Gohan is the same, only he's got Surge 15, but again, decreases by 1 for every Saiyan in the graveyard. So it's definitely got some, potential to speed up getting those Surges out. And since this one deals 30,000 damage to a random character, it can even destroy a Vegito, which is hilarious, but it's probably too slow to ever reasonably do that. So let's go ahead and start removing some cards. Okay, so next up I wanted to discuss Final Blow. There was a lot of rumor going on that Final Blow was somehow able to bypass Overpower. This is not the case. Final Blow is a target card, and because it targets, it cannot be used against cards with Overwhelm, as long as they have a cost of 4 or greater. So that's just something to keep in mind. There was a lot of misinformation going on about how Overpower worked, but it is just definitively only related to targeting. It doesn't matter what the effect is. Card effects can absolutely bypass and hit those types of cards that have Overpower. It's just a matter of targeting. Kiss also cannot target anything that has Overwhelm that's 4 or greater. However, there is a way to get rid of that, which may be relevant. And I don't think I pulled the card up before, but I'll grab it right now. This one, Saiyan Weak Point. This removes the effects applied to all characters on the opponent's side of the field. Always effects are not removed. So if your opponent uses, say, New Hero to get out an Overpower card, or if the card has Overpower through its own effect like Vegito, then you can actually use Saiyan Weak Point to eliminate their Overpower, and then use Kiss to steal the card. And I'll explain a little bit more when I get to Vegito exactly how that plays out, because it's a little bit disappointing. Earth's Champion is the same type of card. It gives unable to attack leader to all characters on the opponent's side of the field. So if you just want to stall for a turn, you can just be like, no thanks. However, if they are running effect negates, then they may get away with killing you anyway. Speaking of effect negates and cards that are typoed, Krillin's Solar Flare does not do at all what it says. It actually removes all other effects from all characters on the field. So it's written incorrectly because it just says on your side of the field, but it definitely applies to the opponents. The reason how I found this out was I was playing the 3-cost Boo that gets 1,000 power for each energy in your bank. And I had a 25k Boo and he became a 3k Boo, and I was very sad. Speaking of cards that can bypass Overpower, Final Words is a 4-cost KO all characters on the field. If your opponent has Overpower, this will absolutely bypass it. Battle Suit Vegeta does 7,000 damage to the board. That bypasses Overpower. 7,000 damage to the board, bypasses Overpower. This targets random cards, so it deals 3,000 damage at random to the opponent's leader, or to one character on their side of the field. This card bypasses Overwhelm as well. Obviously, Semi-Perfect Cell and All Trained Up bypass Overwhelm. Final Flash destroys all characters on the opponent's side of the field, doesn't target, bypasses Overwhelm. So now we're left with New Hero, which gives or Overwhelm. I keep saying Overwhelm, it's Overpower. So New Hero gives a card Overpower, and I'll explain a little bit more about the relevance when I get to the SP cards. And Vegeta does exactly what it states. It just causes a Vegito to appear that has a cost of 9 or higher. And it doesn't have anything at all to do with bringing the cards back. That's just tied to the 10-cost Vegito. Alright, speaking of the 10-cost Vegito, I have not pulled it on PC yet. So, what happens... Well, I guess for starters, I'll just go over and kind of explain how the card works. So, the card gives itself Guard, Swift Attack, Natural Recovery, Rush, and Overpower if Goku and Vegeta are both in your graveyard. The way that you're going to be getting this card out is with Vegeta, which puts both of them there. So, because it's pretty much guaranteed to always be live, and because Vegeta kills himself and gives you the gold symbol, it's going to consume that gold symbol immediately and always have this effect active. Now, if you use the Saiyan weak point card, like I mentioned, you can actually get rid of all of its abilities. However, its always effect will never go away, and its always effect is gives your leader negate damage when this card is on your side of the field. So you can technically use Saiyan weak point, get rid of all of its keywords, and then it's just a 30-30, and then you can kiss it and bring it over to your side of the field. And what will actually happen is, because it won't be on your opponent's side of the field during the start of their turn, they won't get the 2 cards back, and you will have Vegito on your side of the field for their turn, and you will be immune to all damage while it's on your side of the field. However, when you give it back the following turn, at the start of their next turn, it will kill itself with its other effect, and it will cause the Goku and Vegeta to return to the field. So this can't be avoided, and it will be procced by your opponent. I wasn't sure. So because this happens at the start of the turn, and so does me giving the card back with Kiss, what ends up happening is Kiss takes priority over this, so Kiss gives them the card back. It's no longer on my side of the field at the start of my turn, so therefore it doesn't proc. So that's pretty much how the Vegito card is going to work. Is there anything else that was relevant or typoed? Let me go through real quick. Let me go through Card Blast 3 specifically. I think this might actually be good enough to cover most of what was stated. So, because this says select one character on your opponent's side of the field, it does not bypass Overpower. So, this is a great card. Not so useful against the Overpower meta. Let's see. Just a shout out to this Piccolo card. People are starting to see this card as having a lot more potential, because in a rush deck, if you use this card, it's 4,000 extra attack and piercing strike to a card that's going to be doing a lot of face damage already. And I actually have an idea for how to utilize this card, and I'm going to be making a deck for it pretty soon. Okay, I don't think that there's anything else like ruling related that's ambiguous or confusing, so I think we're good to call this one. If anyone has any ruling questions or wants to know how any 2 particular cards interact, just let me know, and I should be able to answer those questions. That's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a good one.